Welcome back. So you had some time to create your learning progression. So now we have this standards-based learning progression, and now we're thinking, okay, now what? What do we do next, right? We need to find out where our students are on the learning continuum. So one of the things that I really love for my particular area of work is something called a messy sheet. And I've linked it in here, and I'm going to show it to you. A messy sheet basically, that's my sample one, is just a whole bunch of circles. So I made these 2 templates. They're linked in. You can use them. And in the circles, you put the skill you're looking for, right? So we take our learning progression and we break it down into these skills, and I maybe put them in circles. And then as I'm observing my students doing reading or doing tasks, then I can kind of jot their name next to the circle where I need to teach them next, or a place that they're missing, right? So I did link a sample in here. Unfortunately, it's like sideways, but still, you can see I took my reading strategies. In each circle, I put a strategy I was looking for, and then I put the child's name that needs to work on that strategy. So I know where to push them and where to get them to go next on my progression. Now, if you could also use a pre and post test. You could also do student reflections or a conference. You can use your ticket out the doors, or morning work or a bell ringer to kind of guide who needs the work and who doesn't. One of the things I really love is giving students, so if I use a ticket out the door, let's say, I might ask them to color a green, yellow, or red dot at the corner of theirs to show how confident they feel in this skill or this question or whatever. The reason I like to do that is because it kind of gives them ownership. So if I don't think I know the answer, but I can put like a red dot in the corner and just try my best, then I know that as the teacher that I'm going to need a little more help, but I'm going to try this, but it's not going to be right. And it kind of relieves some of the pressure as a student by telling the teacher, I might not be getting this right. And I'm telling you that ahead of time, right? So I like them to put a little like sort of dot or color code in something, whether it be a box or a ticket out the door or our morning work or whatever it is. I like using that color system. So once we can find out where students are, one of the ways that Jennifer Saravello finds out where kids are is she uses a picture book, and she pauses to ask readers to think about their question and record it on their an answer, and then she kind of identifies who they are and where they are. All of these things are linked in, so if you want to steal them, you are welcome to use them too. But she uses an example from those shoes. Okay, from those shoes, I clicked on it, opened it. And she reads those shoes, and then she pauses to ask a question about a problem, and she gives kids time to write, and then a vocabulary question and then like a character, describing character question, and then a lesson or a moral. And then you'll notice that at the bottom of her form, which I had retyped just so I could use it, is a box where you can check what do we need to teach next to this child. And so as you go through, the scoring page here on the left gives you sort of like a point value, right? So when I look at identifying the problem, I would look at the students, the way they responded to the first question. Did they have multiple problems? Was there just one problem identified? Were they internal and external? Did we have 3 or more problems identified? And then I would write my students' names in each of the boxes to figure out where they are, so I know where to push them next, right? And I had that broken down, and I stole it from Jennifer Saravello's Understanding Readers book. So I just kind of retyped it. Again, both of those things are linked in, so you can open them, and then you can make a copy and have what her sort of continuums look like for some of these reading skills. So I loved that, and so I went ahead and took it and stole it and used it with one of my favorite fall stories, which is Pumpkin Jack. And I did the same thing. In each box, I picked a skill that we needed to work on, or I needed to know where they were. It was a complete read aloud. We paused, we wrote, And then I was able to kind of assess where kids were from there. You can also do this with word work or vocabulary. You could have them write a word that answers a question. So like write a synonym for small, or write whatever type of word work or vocabulary you're using, right? And so they would write those 4 words for each one. Then maybe one's a contraction, write the contraction for cannot. Write the definition of pre, those kind of things. You could do a quick check-in. And then maybe if you have specific vocabulary for a content area that you guys have been working on, then you would put those words down below and ask them to use them in a sentence, which would identify that they know the meaning of that vocabulary word. There are lots of different ways that we can create an assessment. So you're going to take a minute and pause the video and design some sort of assessment focusing on the first quarter standards that matched your progression that you created. All right, so go ahead and pause, get some work on it, steal some of my templates if you want, and then we'll meet back. All right, so now we're back. And now we know where our kids are, right? So we are giving them some sort of assessment, some sort of check-in where we can find out where are they on the progression. We know where they are. Now we have to help guide them to set the goal. So this is where we would use the progression with our students. We'd say, here's where you are. Or we give them something back and say, where do you think you are? And have them identify where they are on that progression. Sort of like Kate Roberts says in her video, let them like literally put a Post-it note on where they think they are, and then help them set that goal for where they're going next. We can plan small groups. We can differentiate lessons. When I was in the classroom, I really loved to have Word Work Wednesdays, where we could, I could differentiate my small group lessons and to word work groups rather than my reading groups I normally have. Some other times, we can help them in more of an independent practice when we know what they're working on. And then that also gives them more of that ownership over where they're going. So again, we're keeping in mind that big goal. And then now we have all these skills in our progression. And then what kind of strategies do they need to be successful with those skills? So that big kind of setting that goal is kind of where we're going to head next. So when we work with students and we want them to have that ownership and go over it, I'm just going to show you a few quick ways, right? So a lot of us do a ticket out the door, and you might stick your Post-it note on your thing. So could we also do that with a goal, right? Could we say whatever we need to work on? The thing I liked about this poster is it says it's my choice, it's my growth, and it's my responsibility. So we're really putting that ownership of it back on the student. And if they know where they're expected to go and they can identify where they are, then they can see where they have to go next to make that jump, making that really visible for them. This is an example from Jennifer Saravello, and she has the goal at the top, and then every time in a small group or a conference, she teaches that child a lesson, she kind of notes it for them so that they can go back and say, here are the strategies I need to get to this goal. So these are the things I need to do when I'm doing my writing or my reading. She has another one that looks like this, and you can add a little Post-it note on their bookmark for their reading goals. So again, we're teaching them these small strategies that help them make it to those goals. Another way, sometimes people like to do a little page of a SMART goal. In the reading room here, we do, we created a goals for good readers, and it's kind of like a chart, and it breaks down lots of good reading strategies. And then they identified, we had a one-on-one conference. We talked about what we need to work on. We agreed, or we conversed on it. And then for me, it was easier to put the goals on labels. And then so on the far right here, you can see these little index cards that are decorated. We put the label in the middle that had our goal, and then we decorated it and we used it as our bookmarks so that we would continuously see that day after day after day and remind ourselves to do that and that we were working towards that. And then after about 6 weeks, we came back for this goal reflection. And again, I just stuck the label at the top, making it easier for my second graders to write. And then I had them kind of do a reflection. How often did I practice this goal? Did I do it every time I read? Sometimes, or only when Mrs. Mayer reminds me? And then I had them reflect on, did they master this? Could they still work on it? And then for the next 5 weeks, what are we going to work on? Do I want to keep the same one? Do I want to think of a new one? And here I had them write it out. And then we had a conference, and I conference with them, and we discuss what do they need to do. If I agreed, then I would just, congratulate their reflective thinking. If I didn't, I might push them or nudge them through questions and conversations in a different direction. And then we would both sign the bottom that we were going to work on this, and I was going to help, and they were going to take the ownership of that. So either way, being able to set goals and move kids along those progressions and have them feel kind of part of that ownership of it. So thanks for joining me. If you have any additional questions, happy to answer them. You can always email me. Yeah. So thanks again.